Ladies and ladies, I would like to present to you the princess of paleontology herself, Miss Mary Anning. Now, Mary Anning was born in the small seaside town of Lyme Regis, England in the UK. This was also where she did all of her work and where she was raised. Mary was born on May 21st in 1799, and she had a gigantic family. And I'm not kidding. She had a mother, a father, and 9 siblings, not including herself. And they all lived as a big, happy family. I'm just kidding. Only 2 of them survived to adulthood, Mary and her brother Joseph. And Mary was actually named after one of her siblings who had passed before she was even born. But for now, let's just go back to a time when Mary was only 3 years old. Her and her family went to go see a horse show when all of a sudden, a big storm hit. Mary, her babysitter, and 2 of her siblings took shelter underneath a tree, but lightning struck the tree, and the only one who came out alive was Mary. But it was actually seen as sort of a miracle for Mary, because before this, she was seen as a very sickly child, always in bed, but after, she was very upbeat and energetic. From an early age, Mary's father taught her to find and identify shells and fossils in her seaside home. So Mary knew the layout pretty well. If you didn't know where to look, or if you just weren't lucky, you'd find just plain old rocks. But if you found something good, you might find a fossil or an ammonite. That's because long before Mary was born, many dinosaurs used to live in Lyme Regis. Her family was always very poor, so Mary's father would often sell the fossils for money. He was a cabinet maker, and he loved his job so much that he actually became the cabinets. I'm just kidding. No, cabinet makers don't make a lot of money, so he had to find other ways to make ends meet. Even though it was very dangerous exploring the cliffs, Mary loved to find fossils with her father. That is, until one day. Nobody's really sure what exactly happened, but Mary's father sustained serious injury, and he died not very long after, in 1811. This left the family with even less money than before. All they could think about is where they were going to get their next meal and all the debt they were in. But Mary was thinking about something else. Mary remembered how her father sold fossils to tourists, so she did the same. While it didn't make a ton of money, the Annings had enough to get by for now. But they were about to discover a lucky fortune. One day, when Mary was 12 and exploring the cliffs with her brother, they found a mysterious skull that didn't look like anything they'd ever seen before. Is it a crocodile? A dragon? Mary was determined to find out. She did some digging with a team of excavators where she had found the skull, and she discovered something nobody had ever found before. The most complete skeleton ever found of an ichthyosaurus at the time. Before this discovery, nobody really thought that there could be animals before humans existed, but now there was unliving proof. People had found bones and fossils, but nobody really knew what they were. This blew the scientists' minds. This discovery was huge for 1811. People were discussing the skeleton and arguing over it, but nobody really talked about Mary, who discovered it. This was because she sold the skeleton to a rich tourist who promptly took claim for the discovery. But whether people realized it or not, Mary had laid the foundation for an entirely new field of study, which somebody else named for her, called paleontology. Basically, the study of ancient things. Seriously, if you break down the name, it means the study of old. But Mary wanted to understand some of these finds, so she did a lot of research. She read every book she could get her hands on paleontology, even though it was a relatively new subject. She even went as far as learning French to read a few of the leading paleontology books of the day. That's pretty much dedication, if you ask me. Oh, and fun fact, have you ever heard the saying, "She sells seashells by the seashore"? It's a tongue twister, right? She sells seashells by the seashore. But it was actually inspired by Mary Anning and selling her fossils by the seashore. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easy and happy as it sounded in the rhyme. Mary's dog actually died from falling rocks when exploring the shore. Back to what we were talking about before, in 1820, Mary and her family held an auction just because they were so low on money they had to sell their own things. But Mary had been doing some digging, and she discovered not one, not two, but 3 new ichthyosaur skeletons. The shortest one was 5 feet long, but the longest one was over 20 feet long. She sold them for a lot of money for her family, and her client promptly took credit for the discovery. Reading about this made Mary really sad, but she didn't have time to think about that. She had to provide for her family. And I guess her hard work paid off, because in 1823, when she was exploring the cliffs, she decided to do some excavating in a rock that looked suspicious, and she discovered the most complete plesiosaur skeleton ever discovered at that time. The skeleton was approximately 9 feet long. In fact, the find was so impressive that one of the leading paleontologists of the day, one who Mary looked up to and read all of his books, by the name of Georges Cuvier, he was French, and side note, she really was a fan of this guy. She even went as far as learning French to read some of his books. But anyway, this guy says that her skeleton was fake news. And I quote, "It was a result of too much plaster Paris and a lot of imagination. But with a closer look, guess what? It's actually real." I can't imagine what this would have done to Mary's self-esteem, but she was moving on. She had been discovering some weird brown fossilized stuff in the abdomen of her different skeletons, and she thought it might be poop. So she reached out and contacted a friend because she thought it could be a scientific breakthrough. And using the powers of magic, and by magic I mean chemistry, they turned the fossilized feces into fresh dino dung. I know that might sound disgusting at first, but it actually told them crucial information about what the dinosaurs used to eat. Everything's going great, right? Well, wrong, because Mary's partner in crime must have forgotten about her when he wrote his book on his study of this dino dung, giving, you guessed it, no credit to Mary. This is when she sort of broke. She wrote, "The world has used me so unkindly. I fear it has made me suspicious of everyone." This was just because of all the people who had taken advantage of her. She feared it was because she was a woman. But Mary was about to come across a bit of luck, because a storm came and washed up the second ever discovered skeleton of a pterodactyl, complete enough to confirm that yes, this guy could fly. And this discovery rocked the 1828 science world. And I guess Mary was on a lucky streak, because less than a year later, she discovered Squalaraha. But Mary's luck ran out. Yes, she found fossils, but they weren't the same caliber as the previous ones she had been finding. But shortly after her luck ran dry, Mary was diagnosed with breast cancer and died soon afterward in 1847. She was fairly young when she died, only 47 years old. The science world may not have realized it yet, but they just lost a very important person in their history. But I think people should celebrate Mary's life. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned that Mary Anning was a fossil hunter from the start. She helped start the field of paleontology. Some might even argue that she was the very first paleontologist, but it's not a confirmed fact. Mary lived from 1799 to 1842, and she lived her entire life in Lyme Regis, England. Since she was too poor to afford any other work trips, that was the best place for her. She made many groundbreaking discoveries that changed paleontology for what it is today. She shaped how we view fossils, and some of her research may have contributed to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. She's also an inspiration. She's a reminder that no matter who you are, you can always accomplish your goals through hard work. She was poor, but she dug herself out. She even kept on going when people stole credit. More and more people are hearing about Mary Anning today, and if she saw how her field had advanced, I think she would be pretty proud. I hope you all enjoyed my video, and thank you very much for watching.